Today's show is brought to you by StreamTech Drift Boats, the world's most versatile drift boat. Find them at www.streamtechboats.com. I kind of feel bad for these people, but at the same time I don't because they're stupid.
Don't see a circle around yourself, just start pissing everywhere.
Oh, I hate the Dutch.
Welcome to our country. So
she doesn't really look Canadian. She looks almost American. Just insulted all of Canada.
Oh, every time I see something up, then you got If I'd known that before, I would have just interspaced every other sentence with something horrible.
Well, I haven't felt my feet since I sat down in the chair.
Can you see your feet, though?
No. I'd rather do anything else on the planet than go tip a cow over.
How about Canada? Is there any stream access issues up in Canada?
nobody cares.
Not very much.
Kids, if you don't understand that joke, ask your parents.
Evan, Derek,
Yeah.
Oh, God, here it comes.
your flies are open.
Thanks.
Grab hold of your flies. This is a podcast for nymphers, strippers, swingers, and dry fly guys. It's the show that brings you stories, instruction, and conservation from three guys who live it every day. This is the Open Fly.
Well, it's springtime.
Hey, I'm supposed to start.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And we started with Welcome to Spring a couple weeks ago, so we can't do that twice.
Oh,
Well, happy continuation of spring, everybody.
it's almost May.
It is. And our first 80-degree temperatures, which is weird.
I cannot wait. It's funny flip-flop time.
Yeah. Something feels off in here. The room feels lopsided.
It's a little heavy on river straight down and river back, but river left is a little empty.
Yeah, Kirk is tardy today.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So what you're going to hear is Kirk getting the third degree for being late on the Open Fly podcast.
Well, to be fair, you were late, too. You were just less late than he was.
That can be said. That can be said, although I was here before 10. Mm-hmm. But usually I'm here about 9:30.
Yeah, whatever.
I got stuck in some...
Are there still cleanup crews outside?
Where?
Apparently, somebody in my neighborhood had a really good time last night. There were beer bottles all over the road, and one of the neighbors is missing a mailbox.
It wasn't me. I can prove it, too. Maybe it's Kirk. That's why he's late. Let's make that assumption and blame him for that.
Yeah, I'm guessing that the neighborhood's going to think it was us because we're like the youngest on this block by about 20 years, except for the people across from us. But so everybody's going to assume that the young, tattooed, hip kids in that house down there had a party because it was all like right in front of my house. So
the podcast on the block, huh?
Yeah. So
don't be jealous of what we've got. We're just the new podcast on the block.
Mm-hmm. Tell everybody about your literature you brought into the studio today.
Well, today I want to share with you my Sasquatch Field Guide. This is by Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Identifying, Tracking, and Citing North America's Great Ape. And if I am not incorrect, Mr. Meldrum, actually he's a doctor, I'm sorry, he holds a PhD. We're talking to another PhD today, right?
Yeah, a Canadian PhD.
A Canadian...
I don't know what the exchange rate's like right now, but...
Do you say PhD in Canadian the same way you say it in American?
I believe so.
PhD?
You might say like a question. PhD?
PhD, eh?
And then you apologize for having it.
Sorry,
PhD.
Anyways, Dr. Meldrum, PhD, Professor of Anatomy and Anthropology, Department of Biological Science in Idaho State University. He has this whole journal. It's a fold-out. Here, can you hear it? And anyways, it's a Sasquatch field tracking guide. So this is going to come in handy quite a bit.
Yeah.
So something just spooked the cat. I wonder if that's Kirk.
Guess we'll find out.
Hey, have you done any fishing this week?
Me?
Yeah.
Actually, I did.
What'd you do?
I don't know if it really counted as fishing, but yesterday got done with my work a little early, and usually go to CrossFit around that time. But since I stabbed myself in the palm with an oyster knife on Sunday night, I decided that doing push-ups and pull-ups and lifting weights probably wasn't a great idea until my hand healed. So I just went over to the local put-and-take lake and caught caught one, like the biggest trout I've ever caught out of that lake.
Is that Clinkit for easy fishing?
Yeah.
Put and take lake?
Yeah, so I just went and bobbed around in the lake in my canoe and caught about 15 trout in about 2 hours. The biggest one was about 18 inches.
Damn, Evan Burke.
Yeah. Look at me going trout fishing.
In the canoe, huh?
Yep.
Were you center pinning on the lake?
No, I had a 3-weight.
A 3-weight.
And a pink reel.
And a pink reel. Oh, yeah.
And you know what's funny is since I'm not much of a lake fisherman at all, and I'm not really equipped for it, I was like, well, I got a 3-weight reel with a floating line on it, and I've got a bunch of steelhead sink tips. So I put 20 feet of T14 on my 3-weight to get it down, and I actually cast it. It was a very heavy shooting head.
What style are you going to call that? Is it going to be like put and take and lake and?
I don't know. I don't name my anything.
Oh, you're not into naming things, huh?
No.
Hashtag lake fishing with the 3-weight and a sink tip.
Yeah, well, T14, which is like the sink tip of all sink tips. Yeah. That's like hard to cast on like a 14-weight spey rod.
So you just let it line out and troll with your 3-weight?
I actually I could cast it about 30 feet. I was like hitting the banks. I did when I went from one side of the lake to the other. I was dragging it, but meh.
Well. Yeah, that's usually, if you put a small rod with a heavy line, it makes it easier to load it, and that can be a casting benefit, but loading the rod, that's an interesting thing. People just can't figure that out sometimes.
So, yeah, 20 feet of T14 on a 6'6" 3-weight. I mean, it's not my preferred setup, but, it caught fish, so, who might argue with that?
Nice. Did you harvest said troots?
No, I thought about it, but I've got so much salmon in my freezer that it's just like, why bother?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're there for. I mean, they're put and take stocked fish that are all going to get caught by July anyway. So
that's true.
Throwing them back, I mean, doesn't really do a whole lot of good. But I threw them all back.
How was the stability on the water in that canoe?
Just fine.
I'm not a big fan of canoes. I tip them.
They're harder to balance when you have two people in them. When you have one person, it works very well.
That's very true.
Kirk is still not here.
Well,
we've been stalling long enough.
The fine is perhaps deeper than just monetary.
Well, we can actually get along with some actual business here until he shows up. We've got to do our monthly drawing.
Oh, nice.
All our donators, anybody that donated to any of the conservation causes, anybody that donated directly to us and their monthly subscriptions, all of them are entered into this monthly drawing.
Very nice.
Oh, wait. Well, this is awkward.
This is awkward.
This is awkward.
I knew it was Kirk because he has an Open Fly T-shirt on.
Yeah.
Can they see it?
Yeah.
They knew it was you as soon as you walked in.
Don't stand up. You might bonk the mic.
Hey, Kirk, tell everybody how things are going and why you're late.
Our house is torn apart.
Oh.
Was it a tornado?
Well,
there was actually a tornado nearby a couple days ago.
It was a shitstorm, I'll tell you that.
The hail. Apparently there was like an F1 or F0 tornado that touched down and tore apart a carport, a road sign, and a couple shingles.
Where was this at?
Just south of here.
Like Carnation?
I don't remember. I'm not going to act like I'm an authority on the topic. I just know it happened south of here.
I'll tell you
could
what.
Could have been 500 miles away. Could have been 5. I don't know.
We had hail here on Sunday night, bigger than I've ever seen in this part of the country.
And then it went for like an hour straight.
Yeah.
Which was pretty insane.
I was worried because it was the night that my truck was parked in the driveway, and I was thinking...
So the hail tore apart your house is what the moral of the story is?
No. Contractors tore apart our house.
Oh, that's not as cool.
No.
Are you getting a new kitchen?
My wife is. I got a utility sink in the garage I'm pretty happy about, though.
I love a good utility sink.
Yeah. We've been recording for 7 minutes now, and I've got absolutely nowhere.
Oh, we're on the air?
Yeah.
The pace of the show can only get better from here in terms of speed.
Mm-hmm. No, we thought we'd just start without you and, welcome you as you walked in.
Is this show 13 by chance?
I think it's 12.
No, it's
13.
No, it's 14.
14?
It's episode 14.
I don't know. I don't have enough fingers to remember.
No.
I think the penalty should be that Kirk has to pick himself a nickname for today, or a thing for the day off of the insult generator.
For himself?
For being late.
I have another idea if that doesn't work.
Oh, what's your other idea? Let's give him an option.
So, in continuation of our talk that we had with Becky the other week about sustainable foods and things of that nature, do you know what they say the most sustainable of all foods is?
Beer.
Insects.
Oh, yeah.
So look what I bought at our local grocery store.
I've seen those. I've thought about purchasing them.
Crickets, sweetened or sour cream and onion crickets.
Crickets.
Oh, give me one of those, dude.
All right, we're going to pass these around and just we need to lead by example here.
Holy shit balls! Those are actual crickets.
Yeah, now they're actual crickets.
Are those FDA approved?
I don't know. All I know is I bought them at the grocery store here in Duval.
There we go.
Not a significant source of cholesterol, dietary fiber, sugars, vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, and iron.
But
not any
good hit of protein, I would imagine.
I think it was like 1 gram in that entire box.
I'm not eating that shit.
You know, there's.
I'll eat it. I don't care.
I never wanted to go on Survivor or Fear Factor.
Naked and Afraid.
So I'll pass on the crickets.
I'll eat a cricket. I don't care. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, Kirk, as you were walking in, we were about to draw for our monthly raffle winner. The winner is going to win an Allen Heritage Rod of their choice.
Wow, this is exciting.
Very exciting.
So anybody who's donated to us or to a conservation cause, it has been entered. And those of you who are a monthly donator that also donated to a conservation cause gets entered multiple times.
Here goes the cricket.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to eat the cricket?
Yeah, maybe it'll
Do I have to chew it?
chirp.
Is it alive?
No, I don't smell any sour cream and onion.
That's just marketing. That's brilliant marketing. Like, oh, sour cream and onion? That's got to taste good.
It's just natural fermenting. Yeah.
Yeah. So are we going to get to our raffle here?
All right, let's raffle.
Oh, by the way, the cricket didn't really taste like much of anything.
Random. I can confirm it's being randomly generated. Feel the tension in the air.
David Walls.
Hey.
David Wall.
Anybody know David Walls?
I do not.
I know
right.
a lot of Davids, not David Wall.
All right. Well, David Wall, I'm going to be getting a hold of you an Allen Heritage Rod of your choice, and we will ship it to you when you tell us which one you want. So
Sweet.
That is
job.
awesome. Nice
Congratulations, David.
And this is the part of the show where we'd usually get to feedback, but Kirk, guess what?
There is none.
Nobody wanted to talk to you this week.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's a little odd.
So send in your feedback, and you too can be entered in raffles and things and stuff and whatnot.
I have some feedback to give, however. I was on the water on Friday with a client of mine who bought himself a new boat. Mm-hmm. And so I was teaching him how to row the boat that day. And we started talking about the podcast, and he loves it.
Oh.
How about that?
Well, sure he's going to say that. He stuck with you for a day.
It was sincere. It was totally sincere. He could even name guests we'd had on the different episodes.
Yeah, he did
Holy
his
crap.
homework.
So Dave, not the guy that just won Dave, but Dave, thanks for listening.
And not Dave Henry.
And not Dave Henry. God, there's a lot of Daves.
There is. Wow.
Well, Dave, you know who you are, so thanks.
Right on.
Anyway, I think that about wraps up what we need to cover there, and we'll get to our conservation segment. But you can go onto our website and buy shirts if you don't want to enter to win one. But, I did have an idea, and you guys can approve here. I'll put you on the spot. Anybody who buys a shirt can be entered into our monthly drawings.
Oh, nice.
No, I like that.
You like that?
Yeah.
Little extra incentive?
Sure.
Yeah.
Added value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Then
So
it's
I
settled.
already bought my shirt.
Yep.
So enter me into the drawing.
You're entered.
All right.
Sweet. Yeah. So if you buy a shirt, you get an entry into the monthly drawing. And that's our gift to
And
you.
they are nice shirts. They're
actually-
quite nice.
very
I'm
nice
looking
shirts.
at a large stack. Not as large as the last time I looked at it.
No, it gets smaller every week.
Yeah, that means two things. Either we're selling them or
I just don't want to do laundry.
bada boom.
Yeah, it's nice when you have just an endless supply of shirts there that the company pays for, and you just wear it and throw it away when you're done.
Absolutely.
It's a lot easier than having to hang things up on hangers. And
Yeah.
Remind me to tell you about my product idea. It's called Campers. It's kind of in that same vein, but it's for another show.
okay.
Hey, backing up to the mention of Becky from a few weeks ago on sustainable seafood, I was listening to the radio this morning, and a spot came on for Anthony's restaurants here in Seattle, and the whole
I mean, they're in Seattle. We're not in Seattle.
general sense. I mean, somebody from the East Coast is going to think that we're in Seattle.
Yeah, but we know better.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Anyway, the entire point of the ad was calling out the fact that Anthony's only serves wild, sustainable salmon. So they're making a big public point of driving that home, and hopefully the public starts to to grasp that concept.
I hope so.
Yeah.
You know what I find kind of funny about the whole the sustainable seafood and this, that, and the other thing? There's so much information out there about sustainable seafood, and general public's just like, don't care. But then you like show them a picture of a pretty much useless panda that has like no real use to humans or to nature in general. It really has it's not a keystone to anything in their ecosystem. But you show them a picture of a panda and say they're endangered, and everybody's just like, shut up and take my money. And starts crying.
Well, they're furry
emotional.
and cute. Until they eat your face off.
Then you'd be like, okay, this salmon here that's not at all cute, but is like extremely important to the survival of humans.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, it's just a fish.
If fish were fuzzy, it'd be a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
People, when it comes to conservation, are willing to let everybody else do the work, but not and get the benefit, but not them.
That's why I do this podcast, so I can just sit here and talk about it, but not actually have to do anything.
Oh, but you do something.
No, I just sit here and talk about it.
No, but you do.
Oh.
You bring the issues to the people, Evan.
Oh, I thought you did that.
No, I just sit here.
Oh. Well, okay.
No, but it's, there's a bear problem in my neighborhood, and it's because we have trash, which is basically just a big can of food for bears. And people are complacent about when they put their garbage out. They're complacent about when they bring it in, and it causes problems. Same thing like to your point with salmon. If it's easy and it doesn't make me feel bad to do it, I'll eat whatever I can.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, soapbox. Hopping down off of it?
Yep. Well, thanks, Kirk, for that other talking point.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're going to get to our first break here. We're going to be back with the BC Lands Trust, a guy named Jasper. I can't remember his last name at the moment. Is that bad?
No.
All right. Oh, Lament. I don't know how you say it in Canadian.
Is he French-Canadian?
He might be. You might want to ask him.
All right.
It's probably not Lamente.
So the BC Lands Trust, and he'll tell us a little bit more about it, but they are responsible for public access on most of BC's rivers. So they have a lot of stake in the fisheries, and were founded by Roderick Haig Brown. We've talked about him before.
Yes.
He's a very important person in Canadian conservation and outside of Canada, too. So
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to get to our first break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
This is Derek, and on behalf of StreamTech Boats, I want to talk to you about 3 factors that I consider really important when you're choosing a drift boat, and that's safety, fun, and performance. These are the safest drift boats around to float out of. They're fun to row, and from a performance standpoint, if you're a professional on the water, all 3 of these factors are important. So let's take a second to hear from the man who designed the boat himself.
I tried pretty much everything, but just none of them were really doing what I wanted. So we set out to design a boat. I'd call it the one boat that would maneuver like the hard boats, that would go in the really rough places, that would float high, that would have all the amenities that come on a hard boat with anchor systems and good leaning. A very nice flat floor that you can inflate hard, that you can stand on. No bolts, no nuts, no pins, no clips, nothing to put it together. The reasons that it's so good for fishing, it got this rocker, and so it pivots quickly, and it slides out on the foam pile when you come off big drops. That rocker just climbs right out on the foam pile. A total game changer.
So there you have it. My recommendation, Link's words. Look for us at www.streamtechboats.com. Call Link directly. He'll answer that phone, and he'll get you on your way towards the best drift boat on the market.
Now back to the open fly.
Welcome back, and we have our conservation segment today, and we have on the line, actually I didn't even ask how to pronounce your last name. Is it Lament or Lament?
Lament.
Jasper Lament from the Nature Trust of British Columbia. Jasper, welcome.
Hi, Evan. Fantastic to be on the Open Fly.
Yeah. So, Jasper, just let's start off by having you tell us a little bit about what the Nature Trust does, and maybe a little bit about its history, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Absolutely. So the Nature Trust of British Columbia is a land conservation organization based here in British Columbia. We were founded back in 1971, and since then, together with our partners, we have acquired ecologically important land across the province, mainly by purchasing it, also by leasing and establishing conservation easements. And in that period of time of 43 years, we have conserved 170,000 acres of land across BC, and that has been done through partnerships with organizations, industry, individuals, government agencies, and in conserving important habitat for fish, wildlife, and people.
I wish we had some of that down here.
Yeah. How do we get some?
Yeah. Can you guys kind of branch off into another country?
Well, one of the things that's made the Nature Trust of British Columbia very successful has been focusing 100% of our resources just on all the amazing habitat for fish and wildlife that we have right here in BC. And we welcome support from folks in the United States and across Canada, but we've been successful by focusing all of our resources and staying true to our mission, which is focused totally on BC.
Nice.
It seems like the fishing community and conservation communities here in the States can be sometimes fractured, and there's always really strong opposition or support or opposition on sides of issues. What's the culture like in your country in terms of willingness and open to conservation, including, you might reuse or alternative use parts of land that haven't been used before for habitat. Does that go over pretty well in Canada?
Well, I think there's a good conservation ethic here in Canada, and especially in BC. The fisheries management issues are complex. There's multiple sectors that are all using the same fisheries resources. And one of the things that the Nature Trust does is we just don't get into issues like fisheries management or wildlife management. We leave that to our partners in government. So fisheries here in BC are managed by the province and also by the Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And we just don't really get involved in that side of things. We stay focused on land conservation, which is an important part of fisheries conservation, especially when you look at estuaries and rivers that support significant salmonid stocks.
So you're saying that, and the normal way and the way a lot of them work down here is you have a conservation group that seems to kind of try to be a catch-all. They try to do the lands conservation. They try to do affect the fisheries management regulations and all that, and not a whole lot seems to really get done. So you're saying that a lot of the success of what's going on there is more for the the focus is what
Absolutely.
What you guys, okay.
It's specialization on land securement, which is acquiring the land for conservation and then managing it for fish and wildlife. And there's a lot of other important things that need to be done in terms of establishing regulations for fisheries, educating the public about the importance of the environment, and we just leave that to other agencies and organizations and focus our limited resources on what we do best, which is conserving and managing land for conservation.
That sounds smart.
So, I think the closest thing that I can think of we have down here is the Nature Conservancy. Mm-hmm. I don't know a whole lot about that organization, but I know that they acquire and set aside land for similar uses.
So is it a, I don't know how organization works up in Canada, but is it kind of a non-profit, like private organization, or is it affiliated with any kind of government?
No, we are a charity, and so we are established as a non-profit Canadian corporation, and we are governed by a board of directors, which is really one of the strengths of the organization. We have a board that is made up of a mixture of scientists and business leaders and conservationists, and so that expertise in those different areas has really been the strength of our organization over the years. One of the board members earlier in the organization's history was Roderick Haig Brown, who is a famous fly fishing author and conservation advocate, and so we're proud of our history with having some great conservation leaders that have volunteered their time to serve on our board and help guide our organization's investments. That's one of the ways that we make sure that the funds that we're able to raise are invested in some of the highest priority conservation projects that are out there. BC is a vast province, and there's always way more opportunities to conserve land than there are, resources to do it. So having a strong board with that mixture of science and business expertise really helps us to be really highly efficient in conserving only the most important opportunities available to us.
Jasper, what's one of the most recent, or perhaps a current project that you're working on that's significant of note?
Well, we have some really exciting projects going on across the province, and some of them, we just recently finished conserving the Wigwam Flats in the Kootenays, and that process took over 30 years. The Wigwam Flats is an interesting area because it's really important for Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep and for elk, and also is next to a great fly fishing river, the Wigwam River. So there's a real mix of fish and wildlife resources there that are really important. And so our first acquisition in 2014 was the last piece of privately held land on Wigwam Flats. So that was really a great conservation milestone for the Nature Trust, and really is a testament to the decades of efforts of volunteers and staff over that period of time. Right now we're also working to raise funds to acquire some more land on the Salmon River estuary on Vancouver Island, and that's another area where the Nature Trust and its partners have patiently acquired land in an area that has amazing fish and wildlife resources. There's a population of Roosevelt elk there. There's a steelhead stock that has the largest steelhead on Vancouver Island. So
I like steelhead.
Steelhead are incredible fish, and some of the rivers on Vancouver Island that we conserve land on have some wonderful steelhead stocks and historical stocks that we hope to support their maintenance and restoration by conserving habitat in those watersheds.
Derek has a question for you here.
So, Jasper, when it comes to stewardship, because it sounds like that's kind of that's what you guys are doing up there, is whether it's a hunting organization or a fishing organization, it seems like the user groups are really on board with what stewardship means and how that creates actually more opportunity. To actually be part of it and creating that opportunity is actually a good thing. How do we get the Canadian public and the American public to get on board with stewardship as a way to continue to enjoy the resource, and it's not a land grab, or it's not a taking away of opportunity? How does your organization influence that?
Well, the Wigwam Flats is a good example. The acquisition of that piece of land I spoke about was funded in part by a large number of rod and gun clubs in the Kootenays. The Kootenays has some of BC's largest rod and gun clubs, and they have active fundraising programs of their own, and they're real leaders in both in land acquisition by supporting the work of the Nature Trust and in land stewardship. So on some of our properties, like on the Elk River, another good fishing river in the Kootenays, we have Rod and Gun Club members who come out and volunteer their time to help us manage vegetation to benefit the elk that are using our property. And, they're happy to come out there with their equipment and help us to manage the habitat and optimize its functionality for wildlife. So, we have a great relationship with user groups, especially rod and gun clubs, and also naturalist groups in other areas of the province, like on Vancouver Island. We actually have both. So, and often they'll be helping us to take care of properties that we've acquired over the years.
Jasper, I did have a question. Kind of, we're talking about user groups. So, obviously, there's tangible benefits to sportsmen, the fishermen, the hunters, the outdoors people, but it seems like with the amount of resources you guys have acquired and stuff, you obviously have help outside of those user groups. Is the general public kind of on board and seeing tangible benefits and other, starting to care about what you guys are doing, or is it mostly just the hunters and fishers that are supporting you and seeing the benefits of it?
Well, it's a mix. I think historically, hunters and anglers have been some of the strongest proponents of conservation. If you look going back even into the 1930s, across Canada and the U.S., there's been great support for conservation from those groups dating back to real pioneers of conservation like President Theodore Roosevelt. But there's also a large portion of the population who neither fishes nor hunts, and one of the important tasks of organizations like the Nature Trust of British Columbia is to bring the general public to support conservation and to continue to ask their government leaders to invest in conserving habitat for fish and wildlife, just for the sake of keeping those places natural in their communities. So it's important to try to get really all segments of society to support the conservation of fish and wildlife habitat, and that's one of the things that we work on every day.
Jasper, stewardship and conservation aren't they're not intended to be quick solutions or quick fixes to things. So you have to have a tremendous amount of patience and willingness to see something through. Why do you think that outside of the sportsmen's organizations, that the general public is so apathetic about conservation?
Well, I think it's important to make conservation relevant to people, and I think the population of British Columbia and other parts of North America has become more urbanized, and so sometimes when people live in big cities, they don't necessarily connect with nature in quite the same way as people that live surrounded by it. So I think that's, again, one of the challenges is to get people excited about places they might never go to. And one of the ways that we do that is through our website, and our website, which is www.naturetrust.bc.ca, has photographs of some of the properties that we've conserved across BC that most people who live in Vancouver will never see. But some of these landscapes are truly spectacular, and so one of the things we do is we try and make those places important to the public by showing them images from some of the great photographers that we work with, and let them know that this is part of BC, this is part of where they live, and this is something that they should support in terms of keeping these spectacular places natural for future generations. Even if people never get to visit places like the Elk River and the Kootenays or the Stalaco River up in northern BC, I think there's value to the general public in knowing that there's still these wild places that have amazing populations of salmon and grizzly bears, and opportunities to see these incredible places, even if it's just through photographs or YouTube videos. But that's part of where we live here in BC, and we need to make it important to the general public.
Yeah.
Do you fish or hunt?
I do both. I'm a keen fisherman, and just returned from a trip to visit old friends and colleagues down in Florida to do some fishing. And I worked for Ducks Unlimited for many years, and enjoy waterfowl hunting in particular.
Awesome. When you travel to the States, do you find the language barrier to be awkward?
Well, having lived in Memphis, Tennessee for about 6 years, every time I came home to BC on vacation, I was teased relentlessly by my fishing buddies on my newfound Southern twang. So having moved back here a few years ago, I think I've mainly extinguished that from my accent, but
that's good. Good work on that.
A boot, y'all.
Y'all's more Texan.
Yeah, Southern. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Well, I think, the fact that you're a hunter and a fisherman and you're involved in the world of conservation is no great surprise. I mean, people may falsely think that if you're involved in conservation, you wouldn't have the audacity to hunt and fish. But actually, sportsmen are the biggest supporters of conservation, worldwide.
Yeah, and on top of that, he's slightly educated on the topics of fisheries. Tell everybody a little about your background there.
So I studied biology at Queen's University in Eastern Canada, and having spent 4 frigid winters on the shores of Lake Ontario, I started to look further afield for graduate school opportunities, and I was fortunate to get a scholarship to do my Ph.D. in fish biology at the University of Miami in Coral Gables, Florida. And there I got my Ph.D. studying fish in the Florida Everglades. So,
nice.
That's how I sort of set the stage for getting into a career in conserving habitat for fish and wildlife. While I was a grad student, I started the Ducks Unlimited chapter in Miami, Florida. It had been shut down by Hurricane Andrew, and a colleague in grad school and I restarted that chapter and had a couple fundraising events. And I thought, wow, this is a neat organization, and ended up getting a job with them out in California doing wetlands restoration projects in San Francisco Bay and coastal California.
There's a couple problems I see with your advanced degree. Number one, you're actually using your education. You should probably be a fly fishing guide.
Well, I don't know how many people would pay for my fly fishing expertise. I think I'd probably starve. I have a lot of respect for professional fishing guides, and I try to get out and fish with them when I'm on vacation, because I certainly value the expertise of the professionals and make absolutely no claims to share that expertise.
There you go.
Well, sometimes the days are that a good story about what's happening on the resource can fill in some of those slow times on the water. So it's not a bad background to have. I'm just saying.
Well, I think we're going to wrap this up. We're kind of running out of time, but I think there's actually a lot we can learn from kind of what they're doing there. It's the focused approach and things they're doing to bring it to the general public and all that, getting people on board seems to be a pretty effective approach. And kind of the scattered, ununified approach we seem to be taking down here, which is obviously not working. Be cool if more would turn to see the example being set by what you guys are doing. So we applaud you.
Yeah, well,
here's my applause.
British Columbia is an absolutely gorgeous chunk of country, and it's great that you've got organizations like yours that are doing a big part to set it aside and protect it for future generations. At
least they're there, so when Washington joins up with BC to create the country of Cascadia, they're already got things set in motion. So
yeah,
everything's going to be good to go. Isn't that right? Right, guys?
Yeah,
right?
Cascadia.
Yeah.
So those UN trucks are for at the border, huh?
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of great fishing opportunities here in BC, and the Nature Trust of British Columbia has conserved land on some of the great fishing rivers here, like the Cowichan, the Fraser, the Pitt River.
I like the Pitt River
on Vancouver Island, and the Pitt River is somewhere where the Nature Trust has conserved over 1,800 acres of habitat. So,
did you mean to say hectares? 1,800 hectares.
1,800 acres, yes. That's 729 hectares for those who prefer measurements. So there's some really key wetlands that we've been able to protect in that watershed, which helps keep that river healthy and support the future of the great fishing opportunities that Evan enjoys every year.
I do enjoy it. All right, Jasper, we're going to let you go. We really appreciate your time here, and hopefully in the next month or 3, you and I will get on a boat and go fishing together.
Yeah, tell us
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, tell us how to get a hold of you again.
What, Derek?
Sorry, tell us how to get a hold of you again, website and contact info.
Yeah, so jump on our website, www.naturetrust.bc.ca. We've got some exciting projects going on, and we welcome the support of your listeners. And for more information about our properties, we've got some great web links showing Google Earth images of our properties. Some of them have provide great fishing access. So if people have any questions, they're welcome to check out our website and give us a call. So always happy to hear from folks that share our passion for conserving land in British Columbia.
Jasper, I've been sitting on this one. I wanted to ask or say, I hope you didn't lament coming on the show today.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well,
it's been a great opportunity.
Well, see you all later. Yeah, we've hit a new low. That cutting edge humor we're known for has just hit rock bottom.
Well, stand-up comedy might be something you want to look at if this whole fly fishing thing.
We prefer to sit down.
Yeah, we're much better sitting down.
We sit down. So I don't know about sit-down comedy. That might not work.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Hey, Jasper, have you listened to the show before? Did you know what you were getting into?
I have, actually, and I think it's fantastic that the Open Fly includes a conservation segment. So I heard the segment from the Madison River Foundation gentleman, and I think it's great that you guys help to bring fly fishers and conservationists together to talk about the great overlap in our interests, and
sure.
I'm proud to be both. So I'm excited to talk about the work that we do and how it benefits the folks that love to get out and fish.
Cool. Right on.
Thanks,
right.
Jasper.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure.
We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Yeah, like I said, I think there's a lot we can learn from those guys.
Yeah, sounds like a great organization.
It does. I wish we had that here. Somebody, if you're listening and you live in the U.S. or Washington or something, create a nature trust that we can, take advantage of. Because it's not going to be me, but one of you guys has the.
Well, I do think that the Nature Conservancy is doing similar work. We should talk to somebody from that organization.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, well, let's get Greg Wifundo on the line at some point during our show. He does some of the Tianaway Land Trust over on the headwaters of the Yakima,
Cool.
so we can.
Yeah.
And if you have a conservation issue in your area that you want to hear more about or share with the rest of the world, contact us.
Yeah, don't just get on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook doesn't let anybody see anything anymore anyway, but, send us an email or contact us through the page, the Openfly Podcast at gmail.com or the openflypodcast.com, and send us what's going on in your area. A few people have sent me emails with that, and I'm working on researching more of those. I've been trying to contact some of the organizations that some of you have been emailing in. So I appreciate the feedback on that, and hopefully be taking action on some of that soon.
What do you mean by you people?
Oh, boy. You mean you people.
You, the people.
Yeah, you, the people.
Oh, you the people.
You, the listeners of the Open Fly Podcast.
Not like you people.
Nope.
In a derogatory way.
No.
Right.
Well,
Bead fishermen.
yeah. Well, we do have sponsors to pay here.
Let's get some paid.
Yeah. And those of you who have been listening to the most recent shows knows that Wetlander has come on board as a sponsor. Wetlander makes the slick boat bottom coating, and I can say from experience now that it legitimately is the best one on the market, and highly suggest anybody with an aluminum, fiberglass, wooden, or any other such boat to call them and talk about what it is that you're coating. Drift boats, airboats, GNUs, basically any boat that has a bottom that is not
an ass or a bottom.
Yes. Yeah, as long as it is not an inflatable boat, any other kind of hard bottom boat, you would probably benefit from having this on there. Also, trailers. It works really well to coat your trailer, which I found out the hard way.
I think it would be really good to coat the inside of your mower deck so that the wet grass doesn't accumulate and stick inside.
Hey,
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
We should edit that out so we can patent that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you guys can just use this free tidbit of advice.
Sure.
And support our sponsors while you're in the process.
No charge.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get John Deere on as a sponsor now, too.
So, yeah, if you want to know a little bit more about it, you can go to airboatcoatings.com and talk to Scott, and he will get you all the info you need to know whether or not this is the right stuff for your boat. Or you can talk to me directly, too. I'm approachable. I'm an approachable guy, right? Yeah. And have experience with the product, and would be happy to let you know my experience with it so far. And so far, I'm really impressed. And I've used the 2 other big coatings that everybody puts on their boats, and this stuff is miles ahead, or kilometers, so Jasper and his people would understand.
Evan is the new poster boy for wetlander coatings.
Yeah, that's what they pay me for.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, though we would not be taking them on as a sponsor if I did not think it was that good. So It is that good.
It's slick.
Yeah, it is. All right, everybody, we're going to get to break here and come back with Joe Willauer for our guide segment.
Guide stories.
I grew up with Joe, so this is going to be fun for me, too.
And Kirk has fished with Joe. I have yet to meet Joe, so this is going to be a good one.
You're not missing a lot. He's kind of overrated.
I guess we'll find out.
I guess we will find out.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment.
Now back to the open fly.
Well, welcome to Guide Stories at the end of today's segment. I'm really excited about this one, and I say that probably every single
That's
time.
the 13th time you've said that, Derek.
I know, but they just keep getting it better and better and better, I think. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying that Hutch on show 1 wasn't that good?
Hutch was really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But today we have Joe Willauer. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Oh, real good. Thanks for asking, Joe.
Super.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us a little about where you're guiding now, where you started out as a guide, and then we're going to talk about the realities of being a fly fishing guide in today's world. So just tell us where you came from and where you're at, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, I currently live out in Twin Bridges, Montana, also known as Trout Mecca, and live right on the side of the Beaverhead. I've been guiding out here. This will be my 7th guide season in southwestern Montana. So we fished the Big Hole, the Beaverhead, the Madison, the Jefferson, and the Ruby, as well as the Missouri. And I was very fortunate. I cut my teeth guiding over on the Yakima River in Washington State.
Derek knows that river.
High school.
Go ahead. Sorry. Right out of high school. Move on.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. When I graduated high school, I emailed Jack Mitchell, who was an outfitter over there, and he said he was opening up a fly shop. And I said, hey, man, I really want to be a fishing guide. I don't have a boat. I don't have a truck. I was driving an inherited from my parents' 1980 brown station wagon.
I remember that car.
And I really wanted to be a guide. And he said, sure, come on down, work in the shop. And so I saved up some money and bought a really crappy drift boat and a really crappy old Explorer and started guiding that following year.
Nice.
So tell me a little bit more about that 5-year itch. Did you feel like after 5 years that you had learned what you needed to learn on that system and you could apply that someplace else, or was it just was it time to move on?
It was kind of a combination of both for me. I went to grad school after that, which is really the reason I left. But 5 years was a good amount of time where I was definitely ready for a change. The Yakima being such a challenging river to fish, it was a great river to learn how to guide on because all the guys that work there, you got to be good to catch fish out of the Yakima. I mean, it has half the numbers that any of the rivers I fish today have, and it's very competitive. And as anyone who's fished it knows, there's a lot of guides on that river. So just to keep up, you got to be on top of your game.
So what's other than fish counts, which Montana's got it in spades over most places in Washington, and you've guided here for Steelhead too, is that right?
I did, yeah. So I used to spend my falls on the Methow River and the Klickitat, and then would spend the winter months out in the Forks area of the Olympic Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
Did I see you out in Forks once? Or maybe twice?
Maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
I think, it's hard to notice you in the back of the boat, especially when your son's up front catching all the fish.
Yeah, and that's why Joe got the big tip from me.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and I'd mentioned on our previous show when we were kind of previewing this show that you had took me on my first trip down the Klickitat, and I caught my first steelhead while you were cooking lunch, and I had a beer in my left hand and was sitting there in the front of the boat flipping line out.
There's one thing as a guide, it's when you really got it mastered, and that was definitely one of the pinnacle points of my guiding career, was doing absolutely nothing but rowing upstream while one randomly bit your stuff.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, we had like ran probably, he was just like really confident in this spot. He's like, this spot's always got him, and ran probably 5 or 6 laps, rode over this fish every single time probably, and then pulled the boat over and was just everybody was kind of out, and our other buddy like walked down, and I'm just kind of stayed in the boat and chilled out, and it was.
There's no way that you had more than one hand on the rod.
No.
Definitely a beer in one hand.
Yeah, it was. It's one of those things. That was not when it should have happened, but it did.
So, pardon me. So let's talk about the realities of being a guide today, Joe. I mean, you started out as a young kid doing everything that it took to just get on the water and learn how to do it. Do you think that the learning curve today is a lot shorter because of technology, and how has that impacted, you think, the current state of guiding, the reality of guiding?
I don't know how much technology's impacted it overall. I think one of the things I'm so much jealous about, and I was just looking at it this morning as I'm getting ready for a trip to Christmas Island, is the amount of fly tying information online. And that's something that I think is really cool. It's like, hey, I want to tie any pattern out there, and you can find it on YouTube. Like, someone's tied it and made a video. But I think as far as new guides go, I think that there's definitely a lot of guides out there who put in the time and effort to do it, but I feel like I see a lot more guides who don't. And like fly tying being a prime example, like it blows me away when I meet guides, young guides or old guides, that don't know how to tie flies. It just, that seems like such an instrumental part of this business that if you don't at least know how to tie them, whether you buy them or not, like that's something you should be doing. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of that where it's just like, people think it's more glorified than it really is. And when you really get down to it, you're catching fish. You're not saving lives out there.
Right.
Well, you might have an opportunity to save a life.
Opportunity.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
Have you haven't had any instances of having to save anybody's life yet?
Other than my own, when I filled up a drift boat, no.
Well, Joe, I think you're being modest. A couple of years ago, wasn't there some story about a particular blue skiff that was seen coming to the rescue of a swamped boat?
Yeah, that is true. My wife and I were fishing the Big Hole one day, and it turns out we came around a corner, and there was a bunch of boats on the inside watching a boat that was stuck out on a rock pile of an irrigation ditch in high flows during June. And we were able to row over and get them a bucket so they could bail themselves out. And it turned out it was actually a state senator out here in Montana. So a good guy to have owe you a favor.
There you go.
Nice.
So other than just how quick it is to get access to information online, and Washington has made it a lot harder for a guide to actually call themselves a guide now, because you have to go through the process of licensing, insurance, and have a business license. Is that one of the reasons? I mean, moving from Washington to Montana, certainly in terms of fish counts, would make it a little bit easier to do what you do. But do you think Washington's going down the right path with regulating it a little bit better like Montana does? Or
kind of. I don't, frankly, I don't have that much faith in Washington's management of it. I think they'll go 0 to 60 and go from a completely unregulated system like they had when I was there to probably over-regulating it. The way the outfitter system works out here, you need to have an outfitter sign off on your license to be a guide. So in Montana, I'm a guide. I'm not an outfitter. So I work for a variety of different outfitters in the region who sign my guide license. And if Washington was to do something like that, it would make a lot of sense. And what I see they're doing now is this step in the right direction, but I could see them going overboard really quickly with it.
What would be an example of going overboard?
Just eliminating user days or restricting user days so much. The Yakima is a perfect example of a place they could implement what we have on the Big Hole. So each outfitter on the Big Hole has a certain number of user days, which means how many guide trips they can run during peak season, which on that river is June and July. And they could implement something like that, but I could see the state going way too far over and completely limiting it to where they were infringing on the ability for a lot of hardworking guides to make a living.
And that would affect Derek, so
well,
he would have
it would affect me, but I don't disagree with that. I mean, I was on the water on Saturday, and there was like 8 boats at the Ringer takeout, and of course everybody had a slow day, but there was a lot of traffic on the water. A lot of traffic on the water.
Yeah, and I know the way they have it on the Big Hole now, if they were to do it like that on the Yakima, it would stop the amount of outfitters at the current level, essentially. They looked at historic use and then capped it at that. So you wouldn't see it go down from now, but you wouldn't see it continue to exponentially grow like it has. I mean, when I started guiding the Yakima a dozen years ago, like you could go float south to State or anything up above the canyon and pretty much not see a soul. And I know that's no longer the case now.
Right. Yeah, I've talked to a few guides, some mutual friends of ours even that are trying to get something like that going out on the Olympic Peninsula, which is a topic we've brought up many times on the show. Out there, those Forks Rivers, something to kind of limit the number of days and stuff that guides are on the water there just because of the amount of traffic.
Yeah. Joe,
for out there, I think it'd be a really interesting. It'd be very challenging because of the way the rivers fluctuate out there. So
correct,
where I'm at
you can't just be out there every day.
User days for a couple rivers, yeah. And so we have a tailwater as well in the Beaverhead. So when the big hole's toast, you can just run over to the Beav. We're out there with as much as those rivers change, it'd be really difficult. I would love to see them do some sort of stamp system and say, if you go to the peninsula and you fish for 1 day or you fish for 100 days, you have to pay $50 for a steelhead stamp for out there. And then leave all that money there so that they actually have fish and game guys and actually have some conservation at the state level. I mean, the fish and game guy out there, Brian, covers from Lake Crescent all the way down to past the Cleats. I mean, how can one guy cover all that area?
You can't.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So you've got a graduate degree, right?
What's that?
You got a graduate degree, right? Master's degree?
I do, yeah. Yep. In urban and regional planning from Eastern Washington. Go
Gotcha.
Eagles.
Go Eagles. So outside of the skills that you have as a guide in terms of teaching and getting clients safely down the river, what other skill set do you think has proven to be of the most value to you on the boat?
Communication is the key to guiding as far as I'm concerned. And the ability to have fun, those two together. You've got to be able to get across what you want done quickly and concisely so that your anglers can do it. I mean, as you well know, when you're floating down a river, and that's what we do, I do all float trips, things happen really fast. And so you need to get your guys prepped and ready so that they can get their flies where they need to go as stuff comes at you. And then, of course, the ability to have fun. I mean, like you said about not saving lives, I don't understand the angry guide complex. And when you're out there to have a good time, people are paying you good money. You should be having as much fun as possible because as a guide, you're sure as hell not getting rich.
Yeah. You got to have a good attitude on life because you're spending every day of your summer staring at some guy's ass.
Right. And I mean,
which is exactly why I always sit in the back of Joe's boat.
Well, with you, Kirk, I'd probably be staring at your shoulders.
I was waiting for that. So let me interject a little story of my own when I was fishing with Joe. We were rolling through Twin Bridges, and a group of buddies and I, we wanted to fish the big hole, but it got blown out, like Joe said. So we jumped onto the Beaverhead, and we were floating down, and at one point we come around this bend, and there's a broad gravel bar, and we beach the boat, and we step out, and we're standing in shin or knee-deep water, depending upon the length of your legs. And Joe's talking about all these fish. He says, look at these fish. I mean, when you stand here, tons of fish move in and are hanging in the calm water that your legs cause, and I can't see a damn thing. From my vantage point, there is too much glare, and I just didn't see anything. And Joe says, no, look, they're all around. He's being very nurturing and patient with me. And then he says, Kirk, I almost brought a milk carton for you to stand on.
Milk crate?
Yeah, milk crate. So, see, that's the kind of thing you can expect from Joe.
Yeah, but Joe is also not of average height in the other direction.
True.
So where does this nickname Jurgens...
I'll say that's one of my favorite things about guiding is getting to build those relationships with, like you, Kirk, where you get to know people well enough that you can say things like, hey, you're really short. I'm going to bring you a step ladder. because it's definitely not something I rattle off. But those relationships you build, I mean, I have one of my best clients I know better than both my grandparents. I mean, you form such strong bonds, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's all fun for you, Joe. I'm the one in I'm the one in therapy.
You're the one in therapy.
Derek, you had another question for Joe there.
I did, but I just forgot what it was.
You wanted to know his nickname.
Oh, yeah. So let's get to the bottom of it. Where's Jurgens come from? What's this all about?
So when I first started guiding on the Yakima, I got hooked up with a guy named Gus Garcia and Eric Van Doren, two guides that were working for the Evening Hatch at the time, and they had created an ongoing joke about the hand lotion brand that really evolved into other guides, clients, I mean, you name it, anyone that they spend a little bit too much time with a little too much lotion on their hands.
So you like to have smooth and supple hands, right?
Yeah, that's about as polite as I can put it.
Did it involve a box of tissues or anything like that with it too? Or
I don't know.
Well, it's better. Jurgens is much better than mentholatum. I mean, that would be a really hard nickname to have.
No.
Preparation H would be bad.
Yeah, that would be bad too.
That could be yours, Kirk.
Oh, damn.
Preparation K.
Yeah. So, Joe, do you have any particular fun client stories that you can tell? That they don't listen to the show, so it's maybe one that you'll never guide again.
Oh, fun client stories.
I know you've told me some before. I'm sure not all can go on the air, but
for good client stories or bad clients?
The bad clients. We always hear about good clients. I want to hear about the bad clients.
Remember, Kirk's still here. Kirk's with us still, so don't talk about Kirk.
We don't get enough dirt on this show.
For guiding Kirk, I think the best thing I ever saw was we fished a Peninsula River for steelhead one day, and his son caught a gorgeous, just like 15, 16-pound hen right out of the gate.
Yeah, whatever.
Kirk, of course, knocked off the only good fish he hooked. His son lost another one, and we get to about a mile from the takeout. Kirk hooks up and lands what, frankly, in Montana, we'd call it a trout, but probably the nastiest little spawned-out jack steelhead. I mean, if it was a hatchery fish, we definitely would have had to tape it to see if it was legal to kill at 20 inches.
Wow.
But as far as terrible clients, I feel really fortunate in that I haven't had very many. I can only think of a handful of people I wouldn't fish with again out of 12 years of doing it. I mean, 99% of people are really, really great, but there is certainly one that stands out. He was a gentleman from back east who were supposed to be steelhead fishing, and I guess, do you guys edit this for swearing? Because this is where it gets
quack.
No, you can say whatever you want. We'll deal with it later. Sometimes I leave it in, sometimes I don't.
Okay, cool. So we pull up to the Yakima after expecting him to be steelhead fishing, and he goes, "Man, Joe, Eastern Washington's the ugliest looking piece of shit I've ever seen.
Keep it clean.
Nothing but hillbillies and rednecks." I'm like, you have got to be kidding me.
You got to guide this guy.
He follows me up by telling me that the Yakima's a piece of shit river full of dumb effing trout. I was driving an F-150 at the time. He told me that my truck was a piece of shit. I need to buy a GMC, and this is the beginning of day one. And so at this point, I'd thrown in a giant chew and pretty well forgot about him. And so halfway through the second day, we are fishing along, and the river completely blows out. And he tells me about how he firmly believes in Sasquatch.
Hey, wait, Derek.
Sasquatch is out there, and that Sasquatch can turn your brain off with alpha brain waves.
Oh, even better.
Let me get my...
Derek has his guide with us.
Let me get my Sasquatch field guide out here and see about...
Say anything about brain waves?
Let's see. Communications and vocalizations. Screams are very common. Wails, whoops, whistles. Infrasound. So the vocalization's below 20 Hz, which is what?
Oh, he might have been onto something, Joe. You might have dismissed him too soon.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I was just kind of leading him on and being like, oh, yeah, I was floating the Hoh Canyon one day, and I swore I saw him. It was awful. It was, he made racial comments, and, it was terrible. You couldn't ask for a worse guy.
Was this the owner of the Clippers?
Yeah, exactly.
So how was the tip at the end of the 2 days?
Good enough.
Good enough. Huh? Good enough.
Not good enough to ever take him again, but
Yeah.
almost equal to the pain I endured.
So on a more serious note, you've slowed down your number of guiding days quite significantly, and you're doing other things now. Is that how you envisioned it going, or did you think that you were going to guide, full steam until you just fell in the river and floated down?
No, I going to college. I loved going to college, and guiding was the greatest college job ever, because all the work was in the summer and on the weekends. And I was really fortunate to go to school twice and get to where I am because of it. But there was always the end game of not guiding. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I'd guide about 3 days a week. I truly love guiding. It's a financial stability for my future reason to not be guiding and not become an outfitter. As much fun as guiding is, and I was doing a hell of a lot of it and was gone for 2 months at a time, you just can only make so much money. There's only so many days in a year you can fish. And it was just time for a new change. I was really fortunate. I was the head guide out here in Montana at the lodge I was working at. I was guiding with my best friend, Jeff Brosdale, all winter in Forks. And there was just nowhere else for me to go. So it was time for a change.
Well, you had a kid, too.
Well, having our daughter Harper was a big decision in that as well. It's really nice, knowing you're going to be able to buy diapers in January without just watching your little bit of savings from the summer disappear. No more student teaching is a good thing, or substitute teaching is a good thing as well.
Yeah, and you stopped your steelhead guiding as well, correct?
Yep, no more steelhead guiding. I host a trip out there every year, but that's even better because then I get to go catch them myself. I can handle guiding for trout, and I, in fact, like guiding for trout better, but when it comes to getting a two-handed rod out there and throwing it around, I want to be doing it rather than watching somebody else.
The pole of futility.
Yeah, as much as I enjoy steelhead fishing, that would be the last thing I would ever want to guide for.
So
yeah, it's hard just because they're not always there.
It's true.
That is true. Very true. Yeah. So if somebody was listening and wanted to get on your calendar, how do they do that? How do they find you? And
So I work for a variety of outfitters. The best people to call would be the Stonefly Inn in Twin Bridges and specifically ask for me, or shoot me an email at joe@evoanglers.com, and I will get you hooked up through one of the Montana licensed outfitters that I work for. And since I'm not an outfitter, I have to say it very officially sounding like that so it doesn't seem like I'm selling myself out. But I'm not an outfitter, and I worked for the Stonefly Inn, and I work for Seth McLean over at Four Rivers and Sunrise Fly Shop. So there's legal outfitters I work for. I just cannot take you directly through myself.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So for somebody who is like yourself, decides they want to be a guide, do you think a guide school is the way to go, or do you think learning on the water with their clients is the best methodology?
Having never been to guide school, I wouldn't say. I wouldn't know. The way I did it, I bought a crappy boat and a crappy truck and went fishing all the time. I really got fortunate, and Jeff Brosdale took me under his wing and taught me about 2/3 of what I know about fishing. I also learned a ton from Jack Mitchell, and being able to just spend time around guys that fish a lot. And I think being able to check your ego as well, too. I think a lot of young guides now have their GoPro strapped on and they got the music bumping in the boat, and they don't really pay attention to some of the people they should be listening to. I've seen it more than once where young guides are too concerned with breaking up the fish they got when they're standing in the room with a bunch of other good guides that they could be learning from. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right?
Damn whippersnappers. You're sounding like an old middle-aged guy, Joe. Married.
Damn kid. My fist is in the air right now.
Yeah.
Here's another angry Montana.
Married, yeah. Has a kid, short hair, cleaned up his act.
I know.
Did you even get rid of the beard?
The dream is over.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, man. It's like I don't even know you anymore.
When I decided I wanted a job not rowing a boat, I figured I should look a little less homeless.
Let me ask you this, Joe. You mentioned that when you first started guiding, you went to Jack Mitchell and you said, "Hey, dude, I really want to be a fishing guide." When you were looking for your first job here in the last year, your first real job, is that how you approached your employer as well?
It is. I looked him up online and was just like, "Hey, dog, what's up?"
Yeah, right on.
Party.
Well, the job was already yours at that point. Probably just a matter
Yeah,
of
pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. And Joe and I don't know if I gave too much history, but Joe and I actually grew up together. When we were like in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, Joe and I lived, what was like maybe 5 houses apart or so.
Yeah, about a 1 block.
But the only time in my childhood I actually was living in town. We were kind of between farms. So lived in town for a while, and Joe was pretty much my neighbor. So I spent like every day after school in his backyard. I don't know what
Were
we
you
did.
invited, or did you just kind of show up awkwardly?
Both.
Yeah, we had some great times growing up. The fishing world is so small, it's so weird to think about it in that way.
Yeah, think about it. I mean, we were in preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, maybe third grade, all together in the same class. So we got some history. Didn't fish all that much growing up. We did some creek fishing there in eastern Washington. There's some cool creeks out there that kind of got blown up after a while, or they either blew up with guides or they ended up drying up. And then did some four-wheeling into some other like backcountry lakes and some other cool stuff. So
Was Joe tall as a child?
Oh yeah, he was always the tallest one in the class.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, what about Tenkara? What's your thoughts? Are you a fan of Tenkara? I'm starting this new style, so I'm asking.
I'm not a Tenkara angler. I don't really understand. But, simple fly fishing, it doesn't get much more simple than having a reel on there. There's no drag on most of them, or not enough. It's definitely not what I do, but that's all right. I don't judge others, That's why I live in Montana.
Maybe you would
leave me alone.
Maybe you'd be interested then in the style that I'm creating. It's called NASCAR. It's a different between. It's a joining of NASCAR and Tenkara, so we call it NASCARA.
Speeds in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, all you do is cast left and go in circles all day long. Really, real simple stuff. I'll show it to you when I come out.
Yeah. He's looking forward to it.
Yeah. Sounds like Joe's on board.
Well, actually, I fish a river where we get to take out where we put in. You don't need a shuttle. It really helps with those clients that ask that and aren't really sure how you get back to your truck. We just take out where we put in.
Yeah. What's the best question any client's ever asked you on a float?
Okay. Yeah.
That's probably the best. Yeah. Putting in on the upper Cleellum one day where it's like a rapid going straight downhill, and I had these two guys that were my age, and like, this come back around, we're going to take out where we put in, and it's like, ooh.
The river goes in a circle?
Geography buff, huh?
I won't say who it was I had with me, but, I've never guided and have no desire to, but I was with somebody from out of state, an acquaintance of sorts from out of state that had never really had much experience with rivers. And we were floating the Skagit and started to talk about how rivers work and everything. And one thing led to another in the conversation. I started putting two and two together, and it turns out he thought that rivers came out of the ocean and went up to the mountains.
Bullshit.
They don't.
Yeah.
Was his last name Columbus?
He's like, so where does this come out of the ocean? I was like, you mean where's it going into? He's like, no, where's the water that comes out of the ocean into the river? Where does it come? I was like, no, that's not how gravity works.
Like a saltwater river that flows uphill.
Yeah, that's honestly what he thought.
Shh, that's my secret spot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's been my best personal story. But
this isn't really about you, though, Evan. We're talking about Joe today.
It's my show.
It's hard.
Yeah, let's shut him up.
I'm the captain of this ship.
I'm the guide here.
So you're gonna have a pretty big water year this summer in Montana, right? When's your season gonna really get started?
We're working already. I guided Saturday and last Wednesday, both really cold, crappy days. It was like being in Forks again, but we're going to have a really good year. August is going to be awesome. If you want to come to Montana and throw hoppers, this would be a really good summer to do it. Because we shouldn't have closures, and it's going to be night and day from last summer.
If anybody wants a road trip, I'll tag along.
2011 again, but
I'm already going.
yeah, come on out. It's going to be one to be here for sure.
Nice.
I'd like to come, but my days of paying you are over, Joe.
Kirk got himself a boat. Did you know that?
No, I want to be treated like a guest. I mean, why pay and be treated like I'm generally a scourge of the earth, second class citizen?
Yeah, now that you have a boat, you should just come out because you can row for me the whole time.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
I should take my boat out there. I'd probably look really out of place.
You don't have the. It's not like bowling with the bumper lanes in like that raft is.
Yeah. I have a hard boat. I have the 17-foot Aluma weld. I'd look really in place in Montana.
We'll take
we have a lot of those around us.
Oh, really? I thought
No, none.
I didn't think so. I was like, I'm sure I'd look really out of place if I towed that out to Montana. I don't even think my trailer would work. I think it would fall apart by the time I got to about Spokane.
Leave it in Idaho.
Joe, didn't you just get a new Clack Eddy this last year?
Yeah, I did. It is it's the best boat going, and they don't even give them to me for free to say that. They are really awesome. It's got a rounded back end that has totally changed the way their boats row, and then the layout and everything. I mean, Clacks are bulletproof. My old blue skiff that you fished out of, I think I put 750 days on it, and I went to sell it to a guy last fall and picked it up so we could look at the bottom, and I was like, man, I'm kind of surprised it's not more jacked up, to be honest. And he's like, yeah, for as much as you said you use it, it doesn't look bad.
So we've just undermined both of our sponsors today. So the two sponsors of this show, we got StreamTech Drift Boats and then Wetlander Boat Bottom Coatings. So
we'll edit that part out.
You just undermined both our sponsors.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Here we go. When you buy a Clack, you don't need to paint the bottom, and you don't have to blow it up.
And it has a round bottom.
Somehow Fear No Rock sounds a little better than that. But,
yeah.
And with a nice round bottom, too.
Nice.
Yeah, just where we're at. I mean, our rivers are all flat. You don't need a raft. If I moved back to Washington again, a raft is definitely the thing to have.
Mm-hmm. And I got the exact opposite of that. Largely because I pretty much just tow mine a couple miles down the road and drop it into the Skycomish or the Snoqualmie, which,
Up the road.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, Joe, thank you very much. Like I said, I didn't know you in person before, but now I got a little bit better idea of who you are, and looking forward to meeting you out in August and throw some hoppers in Montana.
Yeah, definitely get a hold of me when you come out, man. I'll definitely be around. We're going to have a lot of water. It's going to be a great summer.
I need to do my Montana fishing debut. As many times I've been to Montana, I still have not cast a line there.
It kind of
sucks. You guys got to come out.
Yeah, I might.
Yeah, Kirk, don't come when Kirk comes. It'll rain like 8 inches and you blow out any chance you have of fishing something awesome.
That's true.
And then he'll catch a big fish and I'll blow it with the camera, so it's all good.
Yeah, that's another one.
Right, so one last time, tell us where to find you on the interwebs and if you're on Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so check out evoanglers.com. I'm on Facebook as well, Facebook/evoanglers, and then my most active one anymore is Instagram, which is my favorite because it's all pictures and you don't have to talk.
There you go. We like the instant grams as well.
We like to talk.
You know, a little less babies and dogs and food on there for me, which is good.
That's right. I guess I don't see very many baby pictures on Instagram.
Yeah, no. And I mean, even as one who has one, it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again,
cool.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and thanks for being a guest for Guide Stories.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I can't wait to listen to the episode.
Yeah, it was good to meet you. I mean, wait. It's good to talk to you again.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, I'm happy that you're I'm glad that you're using your degree finally.
Yeah, you know, I cringe a little less when I write out my student loan checks now.
I still have that problem. This is about as close as I get to using one of my degrees as this show, that's just sad.
Nice.
And I say one of my degrees because I got like 3 other ones. They all just collect dust.
Perfect.
I actually dug it out of storage and hung it up on the wall just so I could show that I'm using it again.
I've got a Eastern Washington red planning mug in my office that I call my $35,000 coffee cup.
I got a $60,000 framed piece of paper here. So
I think my college degree cost about $5,000.
Jeez. Yeah, well, Joe and I didn't get it quite so easy.
Strictly because you went to Wazoo?
Back in the day.
Right.
Yeah, like UW was still $20,000 at that point, but Wazoo was only $5,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right, Joe. Well, we're going to let you go, so we're gonna fade you out here and go on to talking about other things.
Sounds good, guys. Have a great day.
Cool.
See you
later, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye.
How about
What
that?
an ass.
Yeah, seriously.
He sounds like a nice young man.
You know, if you ask around the especially here in Washington, you talk around the guide community, and there's a lot of drama and guide divorces and things that you'll never find another guide or person that will say anything bad about Joe. Everybody likes Joe.
Yeah, I mean, not out loud, but in the wall of the TAV, the bathroom wall, there's a lot of things written about Joe.
Is there?
Men's room or ladies' room?
I haven't been in the ladies' room yet.
I don't believe that.
Joe's a great guy. A lot of fun to fish with.
He's got a lot of repeat customers, so if you want to get in with him, I suggest doing it soon.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that people turn him into an annual trip, or sometimes biannual or triannual. So, yeah. He's a good one to go with. Highly recommend it. So, yeah. Anybody else have anything else?
I'm good.
You're good? I'm good.
Episode 14 in the can.
I still think it's 13. We got to look.
That's 14.
I don't know. Whatever. And, well, there's going to be some changes coming up here over the summer. We'll announce that soon once our plans are a little bit more in stone. So we'll have announcements on that soon. Anybody? Any comments?
If you haven't listened to all the previous shows,
you should do that.
So.
Yeah, that might help you soon.
Yeah, there may be some incentive for you to know your open fly.
Yeah.
It's open.
Yeah, study your open fly. Listen over the summer. We got a few more shows here in a row. I think we got a show next week. Next week's we're going to spotlight Idaho.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I think and then Native Fish Society, Idaho, and some other things coming up. So all kinds of fun things and stuff and whatnot. And kind of got the fishing seasons kind of heating up here soon too. So might actually start talking about actually fishing some more soon.
Let's fish more, talk less.
Oh, yeah. It's a good plan.
We're on a Tuesday run, so Tuesday the 6th.
Yeah. And, I mean, I've even got to do... I've had very little trout fishing over the last couple of years, but I got to fish for trout in Utah a couple weeks ago, which was pretty fantastic, and did some trout fishing yesterday that we talked about. So went with Derek. This has been a trouty year for me. I've only caught one steelhead so far in 2014.
We'll turn you into a trout fisherman yet.
Well, I'm not opposed to trout fishing. It's just usually when the trout fishing is good, I can drive 10 miles down the road or up the road highway and go for a steelhead or salmon, or I can drive 2 hours and have a chance at a trout. So that's usually my incentive.
It just depends what you like.
But, it makes sense that I fly all the way to Utah and go catch a bunch of browns. Well, I was there for work, so
I'd fly to Utah to catch some browns.
I recommend it. It was pretty cool. The river that I was on was just polluted with them. I mean, literally like 100+ fish per hole.
How big were the fish?
Small on the small end, like 10 to 12. I've got some upwards of 18 to 20. Biggest fish I got was a 21-inch whitefish.
Nice.
That was a trophy whitey.
Yeah.
Whitefish need love too.
I want to get me a hog brown.
A hog brown?
Yeah, like we're talking 27.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't want to just rape it off the gravel in the fall. I want to...
Yeah, that's usually where most of those come from.
Yeah.
My friends, some of them that are in Montana that are after the hog browns, they've lowered themselves to, they've decided that fly fishing wasn't the method to get those. So they bust out these big, like, salmon rods and, like, 6-inch, 7-inch plugs and put them down in the big holes. And that's how they're doing. Yeah. These are fly guides doing this, so it's okay when they do it, right?
Sure. I'll put a feather on the jig or the plug, and you're okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They showed me some of the rods they use for that, and they're really heavy rods, like 50-pound test rods. I don't know why, but that's what they're doing.
Okay.
There's your advice to catch a hog brown.
It's instructional.
It is. You just learned something today. You want to catch a big fish? Cheat.
There you go.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna be in Mexico in a couple weeks.
Oh, wow.
And I'm only taking fly rods, like I always do.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hopefully catch some 100 to 200 pound sailfish and or marlin again. It's a good time.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll get to talk about that a little bit.
Right. Oh, well, I'm not there yet, but first week of June I'll be heading back through Montana on our annual foray to Yellowstone. We're going a week later this year, hoping to encounter a little bit better weather.
Yeah, you guys kind of get blown out every year, don't you, with snow and...
Last year we had some nice days, but pretty typically you can count on snow coming in sideways. So
I've got a mid-May trip out to River X in Montana. I'll give a report on that too.
Is that a tributary of Nunya Creek?
Yes.
Nice.
Up your slew.
Well, everybody, I think we're going to let you go for another week here. So catch up on previous episodes if you have not yet. And within the next few weeks, we'll tell you why you should be listening to the previous episodes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. All right. Buy shirts, enter our contest, donate, do all that stuff. Today's show is brought to you by Allen Fly Fishing, Emerging Rivers Guide Service, and all of the Woolly Bugger. Find us on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, Instagram, and theopenflypodcast.com. Send feedback to theopenflypodcast@gmail.com. Music provided by musicalley.com. No Canadians, Dutchmen, or short people were harmed in the making of this podcast.
Impressive.